Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I wanted today to kind of have an extensive conversation with you, a kind of grown-up conversation about what it feels like when you're really facing a challenge. As it so happened, everyone that I know that's on the spiritual path, every teacher that I know, are either facing or had already faced or will face at some point in the future a live challenge. And that live challenge is a customized test that the universe is creating for us as a way to help us to go through a crucible of fire, to cleanse and purify ourselves and elevate us to the next phase. And for us to pass the test and go through this, there are several stages of growth and evolution that we have to go through. It is a customized thing, and it could be related to your health. It could be related to your what you love the most. What's the most important for your identity? If you believe you're Bambi, if you believe that you're a little Bo Peep, if you believe whatever it could be related to that. Relationship, emotional relationship, financial relationship, all this kind of relationship that defines who you are. As we are transitioning, and we're in this bardo, which actually means the in-between place, the gap that exists between one state of awareness and the next. And it's a question of how do we move through it? And are we able to recognize when the tests are going in? The best way I can describe this to you is that the customized test, when you're going through it, feels like somebody took all the hope out of your life, vacuumed it out completely. And you're left in despair, scared, in panic and in fear. And it feels like everything that you do to try to get yourself out of it, every time you try to, because from a frontal lobe survival, because the way we deal with problem in this world is that we calculate. We are Homo sapien, and what's our superior abilities, because we don't have any natural defenses, we don't have venom, we don't have claws, we don't camouflage. What we do to survive is to use our cunning, thinking. And when we are faced with a challenge, when the metrics or the resisting energy or the resisting force creates a challenge for us, a customized challenge for us, what do? We try to use our cunning to get over it. If I do this, that, or the other, and it seems that everything you do, every time you make a move thinking that you're going to make it better, it seems to get worse. And it gets to a point where you feel emotionally like you're handcuffed behind your back. And you feel completely vulnerable, disempowered, and scared. I thought I was alone in my experience, and when I began to speak to a lot of my other healers and teachers that I know, they are going through something like this. And I know a lot of other people, a lot of my student people I counsel are going through something similar, where there is a major challenge that presents themselves, and they are trying to figure out their way out of this. It feels like you're walking in quicksand. And the more you battle or you resist and you try to move yourself out of it, the more you're sinking deeper and deeper, and you don't know how to get yourself out of it. And the way out is for you to pray and ask for help. Now, before we get into the prayer and how you get yourself out of it, I want to go deeper into the actual mechanic that the resisting force is using, and how we respond, and how a counterintuitive move is actually the way out. Now, many of us, and it could be a loss, it could be grieving, it could be financial, it's customized. And the way it's customized, it gets you in your weakest point.
What if you already went through it?
Well, congratulations. Beautiful.
It was awful, but I went for like 7 years. It was insane, but yeah. And you know who did it?
Yeah. And congratulations. But I want to talk about the mechanic, because you need to understand this, and because if we don't talk about it, you will not know how to recognize it in your clients. You will not know how to help someone else, because you may know it intuitively, but you need to understand the detail. You need to understand what's going on, how that is. When you see these things in other people, you can counsel them the right way.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to resist it intellectually, like the weasel, using your cunning to try to say, okay, if I do this, that, or the other, maybe this will get better. If I do this, what you should be doing is not that. Because this is what the frontal lobe and the 3D reality, the frontal lobe consciousness, is trying to tell you. We calculate. We try to use our intelligence, so superior intelligence, to try to overcome. Yet the test that we're facing typically connects to a deep vulnerability. Yes, there is archons and there are forces out there that will expand and blow up your weaknesses, my weaknesses, everyone on planet weaknesses, to make it much bigger than it is. And while you're going through it, you have so much doubts. And the doubts come in such a strong, convincing way. This is unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and this started about 3 or 4 years ago. The doubts come in such strong way that you would swear it's God talking to you. It's your intuition. It's your higher power. It comes so strong that, I know this is true. I know, because Spirit, God is telling me this, that, or the other, and you would swear. Yet if you stay quiet and don't do anything and don't act on it, because it's really a way to take you further into perdition. So if you don't act on it and you wait a couple of days or a few hours, what happened? You begin to realize that what you thought convincingly was the truth, the way out, is actually a lie. It's an illusion. The thing that happened in the transition between state of consciousness, the in-between state, the bardo, is that the Maya and the illusion become so strong and so convincing that it's almost impossible to find your way out of it. This is why in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, all the prayers that at every stage of the bardo between death and rebirth, at every stage, when you pray to the Buddha, the prayer always has a line in there that keeps saying, give us safe passage through the bardo. Ask for safe passage, because it's so filled with emotional booby trap. And so I want you to be aware of how convincing these doubts will be. Where one day you wake up, you think you're convinced it's this way, and you're holding that as the truth. The next day, it's this way, and you're holding that as the truth. And you get so confused and lost, and you don't know which way to go. Because one day it's this, the next day it's that, one day that, and the ping pong continues. And I want you to listen to me very carefully. The way out is to go deeper within. The way out is in. What I mean by that, whatever fear that may be generated for you, let's say it's fear of losing money. or fear of the end of a relationship, fear of you dying, or whatever the fear may be. Instead of counterintuitively not thinking about the fear, because my biggest thing is that if I focus, because all of a sudden I was in hope, I was in light, and suddenly the light is snuffed out. It's gone. And I find myself in this quicksand and I don't know how to get myself out of it. Okay? And so the way to actually get through is to actually go deeper into the fear. Not try to knee-jerk reaction, grab a branch or battle, and because when you're gesturing like this in quicksand, you go deeper. It sinks you even deeper. Rather, don't move. Go inwardly, inside of yourself, and realize that you're being tested. And then ask God for clarity. Not to remove the test from you, but to give you the insight and the clarity so that you will have the wisdom to understand the lesson that you're facing so that you will never, at any point in the future, have to do this again. Meaning what? That whatever the trigger is for you, whether it's money or health or whatever it is, the trigger is for you, it's karmically created. There's some part of you in a past life or even in this lifetime that is not perfect. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. I'm using my word very carefully. There's a part of you that's human, that's weak, and that's imperfect, and that made some mistake in the past. Okay, it could be that, for example, you're seeing a bully or somebody in your life that's acting like a bully, that's trying to victimize you, that's trying to hurt you. The way to understand this and comprehend and move by the process so that it will never have to happen again, instead of battling the person, is to do the opposite. I'm going to give you an example. Kuan Yin, when she was on Fragrance Island, when after her father multiple times attempted to kill her, she was there by herself in meditation, and she went deep into the victimization that her father was doing to her, and the pain and the suffering that caused her. And then she went even deeper to realize that given different circumstances and given the way her dad grew up, that it is by the grace of God that she's not as evil as he is. That some part of that darkness, not exactly like she's not her dad, but some part of it exists in her. And that acknowledgement is you acknowledging that you're not perfect. That acknowledgement is you acknowledging that you're human and that you're weak and you're feeble. And more to the point, aside from acknowledging this, is to begin to realize, my God, because I am all of the above, I'm now going to forgive myself for being human, for being imperfect. I need to forgive myself first. And the moment you begin to forgive yourself and realize that the problem that you're seeing externally exists in you, the people you think are your perpetrator, or in you, or some part of them are in you, and you begin to forgive yourself, you have compassion for them. And the dynamic energetically of the relationship shift automatically. Because in your heart, the moment you begin to forgive yourself for having some part of it in you. Years ago, there was one of my friends I used to work with. She used to be part of the computer programming department. when I used to work for the city of New York, and she was a genius. She was brilliant, and she had a boss, a female boss, who was undercutting her at every step of the way. Everything that she did, she took credit for, and she caught her trying to take credit for something that she did, and so on and so forth. And she went and confronted her. And during the confrontation, something magical happened to her. She had that same realization that this woman was so weak and so feeble and so scared by her brilliance that there is a part of her that's capable of doing the same thing. And she said to me, Pierre, I started crying, and I said to her, you're in me. I recognize a part of you in me. And instead of getting her fired, she walked away. She said, I broke down. I was crying, not because of what she did to me, but because I suddenly realized that there's a part of me that's capable of doing the same thing. Deep suppressed, and you have to go deep to get to that point. So when you're facing some sort of karmic situation, and it seems so complicated and so difficult, you have to understand in your deeper analysis of the situation, when you go deep within your heart, ask yourself, what part of the external thing exists in you? Because everything is a mirror. What part? You could be busy battling them and it will last forever. But to really be neutral, you need to acknowledge this, that there's a part of you that's imperfect, that's broken. Because what makes somebody a killer or a bully or whatever it is that you're experiencing is it is that part that you need to understand and process within yourself, and realize that there is deep in your subconscious mind a part of you that's capable of doing this. And the moment you get this, you need to now move. And of course, there's shame. There's, the immediate thing, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I am no good, I'm broken. No, let go of all this. And this is what Kuan Yin did. She then forgave herself for being that human. The power of Kuan Yin, she didn't set out to be she that listened to the suffering of the world. She went into herself to listen to herself, to go deep within herself, to try to understand where the real source, because if the outside is a mirror, everything you are experiencing is an externalization of an internal process that we are not seeing. So for her to see it, she had to go within herself and listen to her own self so that she could find the true origin, the inception of these weaknesses. And as she went deep, deep, deep within, then suddenly she began to realize it. And the moment she got it, the outside was no longer threatening. So what kind of situation are you facing or will you be facing in the future? Because if you're facing a karmic problem, whether it's an attack or whatever it is, some higher being, an ascended master, or even a teacher, or even me, somebody can pray and do healing for you, a collective of people, and temporarily throw fairy dust on you and cause you to bypass it. But that bypass is not a long-term fix. It's temporary. Because if it is karmic, that karmic thing will come back. Any questions, any comments?
Here.
Yeah.
So if, for example, we, in a past life, unkind to someone in whatever manner possible, well, let's say we bullied somebody in a past life, who knows, or whatnot. And then these people come back into our life in the next lifetime, and they do the same thing to us. And
Yeah.
it is for us to understand the lesson and reverse this constant lifetime after lifetime bullying each other, to break the pattern. If we are able to understand it and respond from a neutral point, as you always teach us, then this karmic lesson is learned. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So in other words, when you understand, and this is why when you say, please forgive me, I love you, and I let go, and you don't know what you did in that past life.
Yeah.
Doing this blind, you're going to say, please forgive me, I love you, and I let it go for a long time.
Yeah.
So it behooves you at some moment to do a regression of some kind, so that you can begin to understand the circumstances around the original, your 50%.
Yeah.
What is your 50%? Okay? And the moment you get your 50%, when you say now, please forgive me, I love you. And more importantly, first you have to forgive yourself.
Right. I
was in a different place. I was not the same being. I remember myself, I'm using myself as an example. When I was Pharaoh in Egypt, almost 4,500 years ago, I did a lot of things. Coming from a young kid that had a lot of power too quickly. And I hurt a lot of people. Yeah. Okay? And so some of these people came back into my life right now, and they were attacking me. Yeah. Several of them very severely. Yeah. But
that's just the universe trying to teach us the lesson, right?
Well, absolutely. And it took me a while, 2 years of saying the Ho'oponopono to one of them over and over again after we separated. I just couldn't get what I was doing. I remember one time in the shower, I'm like, I'm not doing this right. Because I'm having, 2 years later, she's not in my life, I'm having conversation with her in my head, thinking of myself still as a victim. Yeah. Something is wrong. And then I went deeper. I'm like, instead of thinking of myself as the victim, what did I do? What is my 50%? What was it in any past life? And then I began to realize it. And the moment I realized it, I'm like, my God, you were a complete jerk to this person. Mm-hmm. You minimized them. You did things to them that were like, your ego was so inflated, you believe you were God. So now, when I said the Ho'oponopono in the next few days, when I said, please forgive me, I understood. And first of all, I forgive myself because I was so immature and so young. I didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I forgive myself first. And then second, I begin now to say the Ho'oponopono when I said, please forgive me. And I thought of myself as this jerk, not to use another stronger term. I saw myself as this complete a-hole that did all of this crazy stuff. Yeah. And I said, please forgive me for this. I am not the same being almost 5,000 years ago. I love you unconditionally. And I let go. And the moment I begin to say it with that in mind, the energetic exchange that I was having with her shifted for me. It's like I was holding, she was holding and I was holding a rubber band, and I let go of one hand, the part that I was holding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pierre, could you talk about how this karmic entanglement relates when somebody passes away in your life?
Yes. Although someone is gone and maybe passed away, but they are not energetically completely gone. Wherever they are, whatever realm they're in, wherever they are in transit, whether they're still in the Bardo or they are in another parallel reality or dimension, wherever they're going to reincarnate. Because according to Buddhism, the Bardo is only 49 days and And there are multiple worlds and what they call realm that we can actually inhabit once we pass the bubble. There's the realm of the jealous God, the realm of the God, there's the realm of the animals, there's several realms. So wherever they may be, the energetic, if it's not resolved, particularly when it's deeply and profoundly emotional, you can still, if something is entangled and you want to resolve it, you can still resolve it. And if it's negative for you, you can resolve it. And if it's positive, at some point in the future, the two souls, maybe when you go to your own bardo, you may join this person where they are, or vice versa. They may join you or however, because the emotional entanglement that we create in one lifetime cannot be resolved completely in just, let's say, 89 years. It's more complex than that.
I'm sure many lifetimes will take a little time to resolve. But the transition in itself of someone isn't the major test that you spoke of, is it? Or
No.
is there a lesson still somewhere in that?
No. The person who is transiting will go to their own bardo, okay? Their transit, in between place. And that bardo involved multiple stages as described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, including the fact that they could experience the first 7 days, what they call the benevolent deities, and and then the following days, it will be the wrathful deities. And they will appear like monsters and demons and all that. But all of them are a guise, because the first 7 days, it's light, it's luminosities of different colors. But so brilliant, it's like staring directly at a sun where you get blinded and scared of the power and the vastness of it. It's the same experience that, I don't know if any of you have ever had this, like you're at the beach and you're on a buoy, a life raft or a buoy, and you're laying down and you close your eyes and the buoy floats out. And the next thing you wake up and you find yourself so far away from the shore, and then you're scared because of the immensity of the water and you want to get back to shore. There are forces in nature, for example, like the sun, that's so powerful that if you're faced with them, because the sun is 1 billion times bigger than the earth. And if we were to get very close to it, we would feel so minuscule. So this is the same kind of luminosity experience that the first 7 days includes. And there's fear of those different color lights. Sometimes it's red, sometimes yellow, blue, and each one of them has a different meaning. But that experience involves a fear of some kind, and you still have to pray to get safe passage. Because behind that, if you can overcome the illusion of the experience, that what you're facing or what you're seeing externally is a mirror, and that everything is inwardly being created by you. So in the bardo, that's the first stage. When you face what they call the wrathful deities, and you see demons and you see all these, beings that are bigger than as tall as the heaven, voices like thunderclap and all kinds of crazy stuff that are happening around you. What they are saying in the text of the bardo, it is a creation of your mind. It's a reflection of your own inner turmoil. And the moment you recognize this, the illusion stops. And when it stops automatically, a Buddha will show up with his consort and will invite you into enlightenment. So all of these obstacles, including, and by the way, I would dare propose and say that the resistance that many of us are feeling right now in the overall transition and bardo into the new earth that we're all facing right now, that transition and that passage and all the tests that we're facing where we feel so disempowered, like we're sinking into quicksand, that's the same. Instead of seeing actual physical demon, what we're facing, the situation we're facing is so overpowering and so big that it feels like we're facing a demon. Like there's a malevolent force that's trying to stop us from achieving or from surviving. There's no difference between the two. So, and and according to the text in the book the Baldo Todol, the actual text of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that book says that the moment you recognize that it's an illusion, that it is a projection that's being created, and that you can go within yourself, and this is what Kuan Yin did. She went inside of herself. And the moment you realize that it's internal, and I'm going to go inside and I'm going to look internally within myself, and I'm going to try to unravel all of the pieces of this out. The moment you get this, everything shifts. Everything automatically begins to shift for you. Meaning what? It means at that moment, you begin to acknowledge that it is my own internal feeling. In the case of Kuan Yin, her relationship with her dad is because she didn't acknowledge the part of her that she was co-creating. And the moment she acknowledged the part that she was co-creating, she forgave herself, she forgave her father. And the next time she met with her father bowed down to her, asking her for forgiveness. Did that answer your question, Janice?
Well, not really.
I went around it, okay?
I think that what you're saying is very appropriate, very good to know. But the perspective is more, well, in part of it at least, is more from the one transitioning than the one not transitioning. But
okay, all right. So I got you. So for the person who is not transitioning, let me ask this then. Does the connection and the relationship, because if you're grieving, if you're feeling, and you're going to a various stage of grief, and you're feeling, the loss, and you're at a point of being, depressed, or you're angry, or you're going through the various stages. The final stage is the acceptance, because all of us will have to go through death, right? And as such, you have to go through the various stages of the grieving process. Now, the point with grieving is that you can experience in one day 2 to 3 different emotions simultaneously. Because there's a part of it that's the denial, and you still don't believe that the person is completely gone. And there's the part also that could be the anger. And then simultaneously, there's the part that could be the depression, all of them mixed together. This is why grief is such a complex thing to unpack, because a lot of time you're feeling not just one thing, you're feeling 3 to 4 things at the same time.
So in your description earlier about tests being karmically related, and that understanding what exists in you that as a mirror to what has been perpetrated against you, that isn't applying to this grief process that you, I think you did relate to grief as part of this initially. Yes. So I'm a little confused about how that related to the giver. And grief could connect to it.
Okay. It depends on the kind of relationship you had with the departed.
Okay.
Okay. So if the relationship you had with the departed was a bullying relationship, then there is karma between you and the person.
Was a bullying relationship?
A bullying.
Oh, bullying.
Yes. Right. A bullying relationship. Okay. Or the person was abusing you. So you would have incomplete karma with them.
I see.
Okay. If it's a positive one, this is why I'm saying that if it's a positive one, then that energy of that person, whatever realm that they are into now, the one that's departed, may begin to draw you, the one as someone who's still alive, into wherever they are. Or they could begin to guide you as to where you should go. And that's a positive part. But if they were if they were the bully and the perpetrator for you, the abuser, so you still can do the Ho'oponopono the way I described it earlier to Melton, and figure out a way to walk away permanently from the relationship and untie the knot of karma. It depends on what kind of relationship you're doing.
Right. Okay. So each case is individual, and unless it is this sort of bullying, not booing,
Yes.
on Halloween, aren't we? But not there. But if it's not a bullying kind of relationship, then chances are there isn't any test per se. Oh, there's always karmic past life issues, I suppose, with anybody, but none overtly being manifested at that point.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if we follow what the example of calling name, the instinct when we are facing situation in life, particularly as it relates to the sense of being trapped into something and not finding a way to get out. And the grief can actually be a trap as well, because I know people who've been marinating in their grief for over 40 years. There was a point where you have to move forward. Yes, I know that the departed can help us and can guide us, but there's a point, it depends on the culture. Back home in the Caribbean, now that it's November is here, there's All Souls Day, where you go to you say mass for the departed, or the soul of the departed. You go to the cemetery, you clean the tomb, you do all this stuff. I never liked to go to the cemetery. It always freaked me out as a kid, but I had to do it because my family was doing it. And I think beyond a certain point, the person is still crying for them. And again, I don't mean to step into somebody's toes, because grief takes however long it wants to take. There is no time. It's not something that's going to take 4 years, 5 years. I don't mean to say this. I mean to say that there are certain cultures that cultivate the connection to the dead. Whereas in other culture, let's say, for example, from Tibet or from other kind of Buddhist culture or Zen Buddhist culture, they understand that the soul of the person goes somewhere else and recycles. So instead of focusing on the loss and where they are in relationship to the loss, they begin to look for the reincarnation of the person. In their connection and their talking to the soul, they're going to get a sign. This is the way the Buddhists were able to become. This is why the current Dalai Lama is the 19th reincarnation of the same being. The Rinpoche, that was his highest Rinpoche, this is the way they back and forth with each other. Is that in their connection after the person transition, in their spiritual connection with them, it's a very positive relationship. The person will give them an indication. I'm going to give you an example. There's a high Rinpoche that had died in Nepal, a circle of the Dalai Lama. And in their prayers and their Bardo thing, the other teachers there, they heard him say, I will reincarnate on the other side of the world. That's all they heard. Fast forward 5 years later, there's a little boy from Tibetan family that's all the way in New Zealand, the exact opposite, either side of the world. He goes to a Buddhist temple with his family. The family had migrated there. And when he saw the image or the picture of the Rinpoche and Rinpoche had several friends or monks that were with him, he began to cry when he saw a picture of one of the monks and saying, this was my friend, and my friend passed away from an accident, which actually happened in real life. He was 5 years old when this happened. So the temple, the head of the temple at that point told the parent, I believe he's the reincarnation of this Rinpoche. They wrote to the Dalai Lama, long and short, they took him back to Tibet and they enthroned him. It's a huge ceremony with trumpet and cymbal, and they enthroned him as the actual reincarnation of this Rinpoche that had died 5 years earlier. It's a different approach. Whereas in other culture, the person who is still alive, the student and the teachers, would energetically try to still connect and be in mourning. They leave the mourning behind as quickly as they can, and they begin to look for signs for where the soul has reincarnated. And they bring that person. And he's brought in as a young boy. There's a video about it. And they bring him back, and there's a big ceremony. They carry him and they bring him, and all of the people who are studying with him are acknowledging him as their master, as their teacher. He's the teacher, he's the teacher. Although they're going to educate him, but the knowledge base that the previous Rinpoche has is in him. And slowly they will cultivate it and bring it out so that that energy and that system can continue to flow. Does that make any sense, Janice? It's a different approach. It's depending on the culture and the belief system. Their belief system is completely different. So I wanted to give you a sense that depending on the culture, in a Buddhist culture where they are looking for the reincarnation or signs of the reincarnation of, in neighboring villages, depending on the sign they saw in dream. A lot of times the sign comes in dreams, so that they will know where the reincarnation is. And then they look for young boys and girls who are demonstrating connection to things and recognition to things that are connected to the person who had passed away. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, it's very interesting, the different cultural perspectives and how they manage that time of loss or grief. And I'm sure it's a great study to review all the different cultures.
Yeah. So the challenge that I'm talking about it's not necessarily grief. It could be, as I said, it could be financial, it could be lodging, it could be all kinds of things. Okay? Where all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation. It is basically your greatest fear. And you find yourself in it or close to it. And if you're close to it, the way out of it is to go inwardly and play in your head the worst case scenario. And whatever that worst case scenario is, once you're at the bottom of it, offer it to God and ask God to take this away from you. Give you the insight first to understand if there's a karma that connects to you, what the karma is and how you can unravel the karma. And once that is all done, then you say, take this cup away from me, and do the universal breath to dislodge it outside of your body from the core of the earth, move the energy in, let it move outside of your body, let it exit outside of your head, and release it into source. And once it's in the quantum field, then inhale it from source, because you will feel a release. If you have really surrendered it, you will feel a release. Because the acknowledgement at that moment, when you feel so disempowered and so vulnerable, is to acknowledge, I cannot do it alone. I need help from my higher power. I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed, I need your help. And the moment that is done, then you can move to the next phase. which is to do the
Quantum leap work in this case too?
Say that again?
The quantum leap that you taught us, would
Yes.
that work in this case too?
It would work as well. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. So the idea is to move the energy out somehow and surrender it into source. And if you're doing the quantum leap information that I've given you, you should be doing it, because what you're gonna get is a decree to where you want to see yourself. Instead of, for example, having no money, see yourself abundant. But abundance is not just money. See yourself in flow. It has to be very specific and very smart. It's not just seeing yourself with gold coins and jewel all over yourself. It's because you could have all of that and not be happy and not be in flow, and still be hoarding and resisting, in a state of total disempowerment and blockage. But it's to see yourself in flow, because if you have coin and you have money and you don't have health, you're not abundant.
Yep.
Okay. So it's having that idea of what real abundance is. And whatever decree that you're gonna release into the blessed field, you need to release it in a way to allow for you to stand now in this perpetually renewed state, where not only money will flow in and out easily, but health, happiness, joy. And more to the point, you want to restore hope. Because whatever you hold your consciousness is, that's the reality you're going to create. So when the resisting force is holding you back and you find yourself trapped, you will create more trap. So instead of fighting it intellectually to try to get out, you will sink in. So do the opposite, go within. And try to learn the lessons. And it may take you weeks to figure out. I know it did for me. It took me weeks to figure out exactly what was the lesson. What am I supposed to learn that I haven't learned? What am I blinded to? What am I not seeing? What is the karma and the lesson? What's my 50%? What am I not seeing? And as you go deeper and deeper into that state of self-query, what then occurs is that suddenly something will pop and you will get an insight. And it will be unexpected. It will be something that you would have never devised from the frontal lobe, because that comes from connection to your heart. And once you get into that space, you will begin to understand and know yourself in a very different way. Because you begin to realize, oh my God, this is a part of me that I was not processing, that I didn't do when I was a kid. It could be something in this lifetime or in a past life. Doesn't matter. Sometimes we are scared by what the universe brings to us. I can share with you one thing with me. And I got scared because I got offered something that was so abundant and so great and so big that I said, no, I don't want it. And guess what? When the universe is trying to give you a gift and a treasure, and you say no to it, and the way I said no, it was a decree it was a measure of God. It was no. And the moment I said this is several years ago, my problem started. Because the universe began to contract all gifts that are coming toward you. Because you said no to one gift. In my mind, I was saying no to, I don't want it from you. I don't want it in that manner. That's what I was saying. But to the universe, when you say, to the subconscious mind, when you say no like this to something that's so big, everything is shrunk down. Everything is shut down. It's like you turn off the faucet. And now, when I decree, I'm having a different conversation with myself. I have to have a different conversation, that I'm standing in a perfect, abundant flow of everything. Of joy, of happiness, of health, of money, an abundant flow, a perpetually renewal flow. And the reason I said no is that I didn't like from whom the offer came from. Someone I didn't want to get it from that person. And again, I had to explore the karma I had with that person. Why was I so resistant to this? What was going on? Deep, deep, deep stuff. And what it did for me is that it began to restore my hope. It began to reconnect me to hope. And therefore, when I am in hope, I allow flow to move in. Any questions, any comments you may have? Now, let me just say here that the point of doing this is to understand that the external transit that the whole planet is going through, that in between, in the translation in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they call it the intermediary state, which is the bardo between, or the gap between two states of awareness. And as we move from where we are right now collectively to where we're going, we have to go to ego death. And all of these experiences of great challenge and test that will occur between now and the time of us moving into the 3 days of darkness before we go into the new earth. All of these experiences are all mini ego death, where the illusion of who we are, what reality we exist in, all of these things are going to be deconstructed. Sometimes we don't know the strength of our own power, because if when I said this, I knew what I was doing, I would not have said it. It was a knee-jerk reaction for me coming from a place of fear. And I said it, and it the kind of, I won't get into the detail because these are private matters, but the kind of knee-jerk reaction or an experience I went through, I didn't mean to go through it. But it was my worst fear. And I know many other teachers right now that are facing things that are their worst fear. So the prayer comes as the last resort. Once you do the internal inner work, where you go deep within yourself and you figure out exactly, you could ask God to give you a bypass without doing the inner work. I don't recommend it. Because if you didn't learn the karmic lesson at some point in the future, because it's a long time between now and 2028, 2030, whenever that transit is, it's a long time. There will be other opportunities for that to come back in some other ways. I have found so many of my students and clients who have said to me, but I thought I dealt with this years ago. Why is the inner child still coming up? Why is this, bullying situation? Why the victimization still coming up? Because you didn't empty the bucket out. There's stuff that are still in there. So in as much as possible, when you're facing something, don't try to, because we live, particularly in the spiritual community, everything has to feel good. Okay? There's a culture and obsession with energetic feel good bypass. Everything that can make us feel good, let's do it right away. And sometime, as in the case of Kuan Yin, and Thich Nhat Hanh, that the Zen Buddhist teacher who just passed away this year, says it all the time. His word is like, the way out is within. When you're facing these challenges, it's not, the quick bypass is not the way out. It's a temporary measure. You need to go within and understand within yourself, where is your 50%, your co-creation? What are you not seeing? What are you not perceiving? And if you can go deep within that place, then suddenly you will begin to get insight about and again, forgive yourself for not being perfect. You're a human being. We set up the standards after, celestial being, Mother Mary, Lady Kuan Yin, Ascended Masters, Master Jesus, Buddha, etc. And we think we should be exactly like them. And every time we see a flaw, and because we think we're like them, we never want to acknowledge there is imperfection in us. And if you're in that place, you're delusional. Because if Kuan Yin could find imperfection in her, you have imperfection. Trust me. Trust me on that.
Yeah, what we did in our past lives, not really to the full extent.
Yeah.
So it is back to us for sure.
Absolutely. Go within, and you will see it. It will show up.
Yeah. Also, when you're going through that stuff, I think it's multifold. One of it is really going inside and digging out whatever you're supposed to learn from it, but also trusting the process that when you come out of it, it's like a rebirth, and that God is always, as you always say, 3 steps ahead. And whatever darkness was just, because they do, when you're in that point and in that depth of misery, these archons, they do stick to you, and they do try to make it worse, right?
Absolutely.
Completely blow it out, especially when you're not feeling well, and there are times you question sometimes even you might come to the point where like, God, why?
Yep.
The point, I think, is really to go inside and to really trust that there is a divine plan.
Yep.
And come out of it, you'll be a different person, and you're moving towards what you're meant to be, and just trust the process.
Yep. Absolutely, well said. And sometimes when you're in the darkness, it creates depression.
It can, yeah. Well, especially if it's good with health. I mean, it comes with it.
Yeah. The test that I'm beginning to move out of. There were moments where I acknowledge I'm deeply depressed. I'm deeply depressed. Yeah. And I have to acknowledge this is the state that I'm in, because I feel trapped. I don't know how to get myself out of it. Yeah.
When you go out, though, it's just, you find yourself first of all completely transformed.
Yes.
Depending on how long you went through it. how long it took. Sometimes it's grander, sometimes it's a smaller lesson, but at the end of it, you're a completely different person, and on a different, and on a more purposeful way too. It just kind of strengthens your purpose or brings something else into your plate that there before the incident. So yeah.
Because you become lighter energy.
Tell everyone that although I went through my Bardo for 7 years, but at the end of it, you're really transformed. So it's a good thing in the end for anyone who's going to go through it or is in the midst of it.
Yep. And because you become so much lighter, you let go of all that load. Whatever you were carrying, the guilt, the shame, whatever emotion, dark emotion, you let go of all of it.
Yeah. Your identity, what you thought you were, and when take it away from you, you're like, whoa, okay, let me sit down and rethink. Who the heck am I?
Yes. And I joke all the time. I said, you may think you're Bambi, and sometimes you might be slightly Ursula, the witch. You might be there's a part of you that may be Cruella de Vil. So, and this is again going within yourself. You may think I'm little Bambi and I'm going blue, 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 blue in the forest. I'm the victim. What happened to me? But sometimes when you go deep with that place, you realize there's another part of me that in a past life somewhere that did some things that were not so cute.
Absolutely.
And were not so innocent.
Absolutely not.
And I need to acknowledge this. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm complex. I'm many pieces. I'm not that person anymore, but I need to acknowledge I did this. And I'm facing the consequences now. And therefore, I have to ask for forgiveness. I have to forgive myself for having done this because I was not enlightened. Obviously, someone who was happy, who was content, who was at peace would not do this. So I was confused. I was lost. And now I'm in a different place. And whatever consequences I have with the situation that I'm in right now, I'm asking for forgiveness for it as well. And I'm letting go. I'm asking for all that negative energy to be replaced by the ultimate nullifier, which is love. The ultimate nullifier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Astrologically, there's a lot going on also. I don't know, I cannot speak to details, but I know there are some events happening, changes that happen like once every 100 years, for example, in some areas. So they stay the big changes. And from what I'm hearing on podcasts, they have a lot to do with identity, which is kind of interesting because we at the same time, we're trying to embrace our cosmic identity as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how the two kind of meet, at some point. Mm-hmm. And I guess it makes sense that you want to understand your weaknesses, if there are any deeper, better, so your big identity can be more compassionate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And more understanding. So these things kind of seem to go hand in hand. You're trying to be big and cosmic and this and that, but what you really need to do at the same time, or maybe first, is to understand your weaknesses as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be tricky, but I think, like you said, if you ask for higher guidance, they will kind of walk you through it, right?
Yeah.
Also, because sometimes sometimes I find myself like, okay, so which goes first?
Yeah.
Do I think big or do I think small, and how to make it manageable, right, for yourself?
You know what, Ursula, what you're saying, it just reminded me of a movie that I saw I have to find this movie again. I want to watch it again. It's a kung fu movie about a Taoist master. And he's having a conversation with a younger swordsman who's studying under him. And they're playing chess, Chinese chess. And he said, the younger swordsman said to him, but Master so-and-so, I dare not approach you when say anything when I see you around the emperor. You have so much power and you have mastered so much energy, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And you know what he said to the young swordsman? They were drinking tea, by the way. He said to the young swordsman, he said, power? I don't have any power. He said, what you're calling power is not mine. He said, the only thing I have is that I am more connected to my heart than you are. He said, I am a vessel. And he took the cup and he looked at it. He said, to the degree that I am empty, and he tipped some of the tea out, all of the power that exists in nature can flow in me. That blew my head. I had to rewind this and play it multiple times. I'm like, what did he say? What was that? What was that? I rewind the movie and I'm like, oh my God, this is so deep. He said, it's not, the power is not mine. And he did some absolutely miraculous things as well. He said, none of it is mine. It's not my chi, it's not my energy. It comes from around me. But because I'm so connected to my heart, and again, talking about the quantum field and the merger. So when you go in your cosmic identity, that's what you're doing. The power is not yours. You're still imperfect. You're still human. It's a question of letting your heart be so empty that your own ego agenda are not involved anymore. And the moment that happens, the cosmic will flow in you.
Well, yeah, thank you for reminding all of this and putting it together. Yeah, that's a nice way to look at it for sure. Or maybe the way I prefer to look at it is that I don't want to exclude myself completely out of the picture, because then I tend to go to the other extreme. So I have to be careful. But you know, there was in the books that we did the readings, there were the doctors, you spoke about it a lot, and Dr. Stone as well, where it's like you co-creating with God in the sense that you aware of what needs to happen, like the bigger picture, and how you fit into that, you know, how you fit into that, and the two can coexist.
Absolutely.
You know, peacefully. And that's a nice way to, thank you for reminding this, because I was struggling, you know, how do I put this all together?
Yeah. The two things are not antagonistic to each other.
Right, yeah.
They are not opposite ends. In fact, what you do as a human being is that after acknowledging the flaws, this is why you empty yourself. You ask God to empty it out from you. And the moment you're in the blessed field, because you're empty now, it's like a cup that has nothing in it, then it will flow. Right. Everything will flow within.
And then to your point, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And you become the grounding rod for it. This is where the decree comes in. You become the grounding rod from it. And at some point, the universe will give you a short sentence that will be the decree that will be about what you need to project into the world.
Right.
The co-creation.
Because, you know, to your point, we've been practicing in the council, you know, manifesting for ourselves.
Yeah.
And part of it, I'm finding that the best way for me to seek is to seek balance, actually flow and balance. I find if I'm less specific and I just try to be in the flow, in the balance and obedience and listen, that's like the easiest way for me to wrap around it. So a lot of it has to do with this just, you know, all that kind of connects ultimately for the ultimate goal, which is to be a witness, right?
Yeah.
And thank you for reminding that as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's almost like a layers to it.
Yeah.
But if you when you remind us to see it that way, it all kind of makes sense. It's kind of all comes together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah. So the idea is that when you are, the fact that you are acknowledging your human, in other words, it's only when you become completely human, real human, and you realize your imperfection, that divinity rise. It's only when you get to that point, because if you bypass your humanity and you jump over it and you jump over your flaws, there is that energy cannot ground because you have no roots. But when you know yourself deeply and you understand all your weaknesses and you have addressed all of the various, falsities and lies that you've told yourself from this lifetime and past lives, and you're trying your best to elevate from that standpoint, then spirit has a place to go. Spirit has a place for it to ground into you.
And that makes sense too, because unless you, that creates like the real compassion, and unless you, you know, if you don't have that, then you'll be judging, right?
Absolutely.
And then what kind of spiritual higher being are you if you go around judging people?
It's not even, and more importantly, when you discover that these things are in you, you will judge yourself. Your worth will drop into the pit.
Right.
Because there will be an experience that will project it back to you. This is the way the universe is. The universe is smarter.
Yeah.
It will create a mirror to project it back to you.
Yes, totally. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, in Zen Buddhism and in Taoism, at the root of the yang, the yin begins, and vice versa. So when opposites show up, the energy of at the very tail end of one, this is the way Tai Chi works. At the opposite end of someone that's attacking you, you use their own energy to create a flow and redirect it and come back to them. This is the way it works. So when you're facing whatever challenge that you're facing externally, no matter how big it is, instead of getting caught in the external and the loudness and again, it's those demons that are described in the Bible that have voices that are like thunderclap. They're so loud and so that you're lost in the Maya and the illusion. Quiet down and go with them. And try to find the mirror. I'm experiencing this. It's a mirror for something that's within me. What am I not seeing? What am I not acknowledging? What is my 50%? What part of this, in some small way, exists internally in me? And the moment you crack that and you resolve it, the external will change.
Yeah, I've been feeling that too. And it's been I feel like I must have buried it really deep because it's trying to show up for me, but it's taking a while. But I've been asking my higher self for help.
Yeah.
You know, like if I try, I believe in trying first, you know, your best. But at the same time, you know, 6 months later, you know, if you're not making progress and you're still stuck, I felt like it was time to ask. So I did. So I did, you know, because sometimes it's just hard
Yeah.
to
And,
see.
and as I said before, to remind you, the little prayer that I do, God, do not take the lesson away from me,
Yeah,
but give me the wisdom so that I will learn this lesson once and for all, and I will never have to repeat it again. Just
yeah.
give me the insight.
Yeah, I'm gonna repeat that prayer. It's actually very helpful. I don't repeat it every day, but when I need it, it really works. So I will. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. So as we do this, we're going to discover all kinds of things about ourselves, and it will begin to help us create the foundation upon which our rising to the heaven will be created. And again, the more empty you are, there's another Zen Buddhist story of this Western man who went to a Zen Buddhist temple in Asia, and the master asked him to come in and to have a cup of tea with him. And he's telling the master, well, I studied this and I studied with this master, this teacher, I traveled this, I did that, I did that. And then the master said to him, he asked the one of his lower monk to bring some tea in, and he told the guy who was holding the cup. And he began to pour the tea for the guy, and he poured the tea, and the tea kept on flowing. And the master filled it and overflow. And it began to flow all over. He said, oh, you put too much. And then the master said to him, the cup and the overflow is like your mind. I have nothing to teach you because you seem to know everything. So sometimes humbling ourselves and emptying ourselves out, it's the best way to create space for the blessed field energy to come within and to ground and change our meridians and our channel so that we can allow the true anchoring of that cosmic being within us. Any other questions or comments? Let's take a 5-minute break, and then on the back end of this, we'll do a closing meditation. 5 minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your mind and your heart merge with each other. And let your heart space become the processing center for your entire consciousness. It is as if you could only see the world from that part of your body. Realize that you can perceive energies 360 degrees all around you. And notice what you notice. What kind of insights, expansions, elevation and knowing is this creating for you? Become aware of any resistance, challenges, fears, and external events that are stressing you out. Take a very deep and slow breath. And go deep, sink yourself completely into the inner root causes of these external things. Notice what you noticed and ask yourself, what is my 50%? What am I not seeing? What am I not understanding? What am I lying to myself about? Show me the lesson that I am supposed to learn so that I don't have to face this again. We call upon God, the God Force, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. We ask for the Ascended Masters and the entire Holy Assembly to help us move this vulnerability as we acknowledge and forgive ourselves for being human and imperfect. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move to the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging all of this imperfection and internal realization, bringing it all the way outside of your head, and now exhale completely as you release it completely into source and let go. Now inhale in source. And let the blessings and the miraculous and instantaneous transformation of the quantum field to drop into the top of your head, passing through your body and grounding into the very core of the earth. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging any residual pockets of that resistance and that understanding of your co-creation, moving it all out from your body and releasing it outside of your head and into source. Surrendering it all out as you exhale completely and let go. Allow infinity times infinity to bring you the solutions, set the healing and the repairs that you need. And take a very deep breath from source. And let it now cascade back into your body and drop into your entire being and ground into the core of the earth. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging any residual fragments of this disempowerment and vulnerability, and let it all be dislodged and release it outside of your head as you exhale completely and release it into source. Take a very deep breath from the blessed field and inhale the benevolence and the cascade of goodness that's coming toward you. And let it move through the top of your head, passing through you, going through your entire body and all the 50 trillion cells in your body, and let it ground into the very core of the earth. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes. How you all doing?
Thank you, Pierre. That was very helpful.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Beloved family, I want to thank you all for listening to me tonight. For those of you who are listening to me on Patreon, thank you for your support. On YouTube land, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends if you're benefiting from this. I want to say thank you everyone again. Wish you a blessed end of the day and sending you my deepest love, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Love you too.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Yeah.
night. Love you.
Love you more. Bye.